guys.
It's Mark.
It's Michelle.
And this is Mark and Michelle the day after. Is this the day,
the day after the day
after Thanksgiving? There we go.
The day after day.
We are. So
still Thanksgiving weekend. Mark had 3 days off. It's pretty wild.
Yep. And but anyway, it's been fun.
Are you coming around?
Come on, man. Thanks.
We're in a high traffic area.
We are. Let's see here.
I hope you guys had a great weekend. Still having it? Did you shop? We didn't even leave the house.
No, we didn't. And that's a good thing. All right, let's...
That's probably why no one is here. They're shopping.
They are shopping. They're shopping.
No, it's down there.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not which one.
Not that one.
Obviously. Thank you. All right, here we go. And
so yesterday we ended with forgiveness.
Uh-huh. And do you want to talk about?
We can do it at the end.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So let's start with GAPS diet today. So we're back to the autism lingo stuff. GAPS diet, for those of you who don't know, gut and psychology syndrome. That's what the GAPS stands for. And the GAPS diet was derived from the specific carbohydrate diet created by Dr. Sidney Valentine Haas to naturally treat chronic inflammatory conditions in the digestive tract as a result of a damaged gut lining. And for a lot of people, that's been successful. It was for me up to a point.
Yeah, we started with that one.
Mm-hmm. And we started back in 2013. It's high protein, high fat. That's, you eat a lot of meat, you eat a lot of fat. And fermented dairy, raw garlic, probiotics, that's specific to the GAPS diet. But while it did help my autism in a lot of ways, it didn't solve all the problems. And
in fact, he stopped and went backwards.
Exactly. Because liver got backed up with more fat because that's all I was eating. For 18 months straight, all I ate for every meal was meat, broth, and fat. That's what I ate. And extra fat in the form of fermented dairy and butter and coconut
if we
oil.
ask, how were you able to do that? What would you say?
Well, obviously my liver wasn't all that backed up when I started. And I have since seen other kids who do not do well on, and I'm talking about kids now, who do not do well on GAPS at all.
Yeah.
And I had
lots of histamine reactions.
Mm-hmm. And I know one woman who has recovered her son from severe autism, but he's been on GAPS most of his life. Now he's done doing vegetarian, but I'm sure that the GAPS stopped showing improvement for him because his liver just backed up even more.
Yeah, medical medium covers everything.
It does. And so GAPS diet might be good to start with, but it doesn't solve everything. For instance, although in her book, Dr. Campbell McBride says that juicing detoxes, well, I didn't understand juicing very well at that point, and it just caused difficult behaviors in me.
Yeah.
And so even carrot juice. And so we didn't continue juicing. And Dr. Campbell McBride says that juicing will detox you of heavy metals. But I don't see how. Yeah. There are no chelators in juice.
Right.
And heavy metals, you have to directly address that. It isn't something that you just you can hope will go away. And, the Andy Cutler chelation method, that works for a lot of people. It is an involved protocol, but it does work. But Medical Medium's heavy metal detox smoothie works quickly and effectively, and it's easy. And you don't have to get up every 2 to 4 hours, making sure that you get in the ALA and the DMSA and the other stuff. So anyway, but GAPS diet was good to a point, but it didn't solve all my problems.
Well, it did change him. It was pretty shocking.
Mm-hmm. It was. All right. So genes, Gene, not JEAN, not blue jeans, but DNA genes. A gene is the basic physical and functional unit of heredity. And a lot of people like to think genes are hardwired. They're not. There is nothing that is biologically hardwired. If it was, you would never change. And if any damage occurred to you, like a wound or an injury or something like that, you can never heal, right? Nothing is hardwired in biology. Just believe it, because it's easy enough to prove, right? In fact, we've done so. I say prove, but it's easy enough to show plenty of evidence for it, right? The body heals, the brain changes. If any changes are made whatsoever, then that means the body can heal. So genes, and everybody likes to think they know what a gene is, and most people have a very basic idea of it, but it is a sequence of nucleotide bases. What that means is these are chemical compounds that complement each other, CGAT, and for cytosine, adenine, thymine, and guanine. Those things match each other up to form DNA strands, but the gene itself is the whole sequence, a whole sequence that produces a single protein, right?
We talked about the
MTHFR
gene and how people think that it's hardwired in. It's actually, medical medium says, a backed up liver that's not able to produce genes correctly.
Right.
Because it's too busy with toxicity.
And I imagine that because the liver is too busy with toxicity, that extra toxicity is getting out and interfering with the enzymes that help replicate the genes.
That too, yeah.
So, all right, genes. A gene is literally just a section of those nucleotide bases that produce one protein. And if I got the basic information wrong, I'll correct it later. All right, heavy metals. We'll move on to that. Well, heavy metals can interfere with genes. Heavy metals interfere with neurons in your brain, and not just, you have neurons in other places too, not just your brain. And every other, you have nerves in every other place in your body. You have to, otherwise you wouldn't feel pain in your fingertips. And so heavy metals can interfere with feeling pain. Heavy metals can interfere with thinking. Heavy metals can interfere with decision making. Heavy metals can interfere with seeing. Heavy metals can interfere with basically every biological process that there is to be messed with. And that's why you detox from them regularly.
And it can throw off perception.
Exactly, because it messes with the neurons in your brain. And so heavy metals.
It can make you think you're hearing voices. I was just reading about schizophrenia. I don't know why I'm so into schizophrenia right now, but that's heavy metals. And some woman on the detox group said she's worked in psych wards for 30 years, and she thinks people who are hearing voices are actually picking up radio signals because there's so many metals in their head.
Well, that could very well be.
So that is an interesting thought.
Yeah. It sounds crazy, but who knows, And
well, if you've got enough metals, I mean, you're an antenna walking around.
Yeah. And so all of those, as we talked about on a specific heavy metal episode, the definition of heavy metals is somewhat loose. But when we talk about heavy metals, what we're talking about are metals like mercury, lead, aluminum, nickel, copper, cadmium. And you can have even too much iron.
Yeah.
And we'll throw that in there as well. There are other metals like silver, gold, stuff like that you don't want in your system either. They can be downright poisonous.
Except for the silver that we take.
Because of how it's made.
What is that called?
Colloidal silver.
Thank you.
And
that is very healing.
And so metals mainly that we're talking about, mercury, lead, aluminum, that kind of thing. And I've seen scientific papers that talk about Alzheimer's being aluminum in the brain. And autism is mainly mercury and lead. And so
pica is lead.
Pica is lead. And pica, for those of you who don't know, is eating non-edible items like coins and thread and thimbles and who knows what
whatever
else. Yeah, bolts, that kind of thing. So, but heavy metals are the things that you detox from because they mess with everything in your system. And so that's why he recommends the heavy metal detox smoothie quite often. Especially, we did the 28-day cleanse, stretched it out for 35 days, and did the heavy metal detox smoothie. Excuse me, heavy metal detox smoothie for those 35 days, and to great effect. And we've known one of our clients here. She has been helping her son and daughter, and they've shown great improvement just in 2 months.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But that's heavy metals. Right, let's move on to, here we go. We talked about explicit the other day. Now we're going to talk about implicit.
Which we actually talked about some yesterday because we talked about the Harry Met Sally movie and all the implicit communication. Hi, Lacey.
And thanks for being here. And so implicit. Implicit is communication that is suggested but not communicated directly. So implied is another term. A good example is all body language is implicit. Well, maybe not.
Oh, you must be a Southerner, Lacey. We used to live in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We love y'all.
And so, but implicit is stuff that you don't outright say. And that's how most people communicate. They're not very direct. Now, if you live up north here in the United States, people are more direct. Growing up in the South, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and even here in Oklahoma, people aren't
as direct
in what they say. In fact, here in Oklahoma, people
Southern living in California.
Southern California, and but in the South, people will politely talk around things, but when they need to get straight to something, they will. Now, here in the southern part of the Midwest, people tend to talk around things and not get direct at all. And that yes, and that I find a little frustrating because it can be difficult to get to understand what they're trying to say.
You don't know where you stand either.
Yeah, exactly.
Northern California. Hi, Lenita.
And so implicit can be poorly communicated, but when
it can be very poorly received.
Well, let's say that.
It might be communicated well, but can't be received at all.
Right, and because in the case of autism, in my autism, when I had it, I hardly ever. No, I don't think I picked up any implicit communication.
No,
because you had to belabor the point.
I could speak to people with my face. And you be right there, and you have no idea that I'm like saying something to somebody.
Well, it's like one of my coworkers at work. She used to be my boss, and she manages another department now. The other night, she said, "Well, you know, that particular department, prepared foods," she said, they might be going through some tough times now." And I said, yes, and I made a comment. And there's only 2 times that this coworker of mine has ever sounded like she was gossiping. And the previous time, she was not hinting. She was outright telling me, hey, how about you go apply for that position now that such and such is gone? Well, the second time that she's done that, I only realized this morning or yesterday that she was hinting for me to go do the same thing because that position was open, right? She was even more implicit this time. And it took me,
she could be.
Yeah, because she could be.
Yeah.
But it took me a couple of days to figure it out as opposed to weeks or never getting it, right? Because finally I figured out that's what she was saying. She was saying, hey, you could go over there and really handle that position. And I was like, oh. But man, all she did was bring up the subject of the department, and I'm looking around for cameras, you know, making sure that nobody's recording me saying something stupid, you know. And so, but I finally figured out what she meant, and I was going to say figure.
Yes,
and,
I figured.
But figured out what she meant. So implicit can be poorly received. The person who's communicating implicitly knows what they mean. Problem is, if you're not able to pick up what they mean, then they're not communicating anything.
No.
As far as you're concerned. So, but I have since realized that a lot of implicit communication is having that intuitive part in you come on that picks it up right away.
Which leads us to our next word, which we'll save for tomorrow because you wanted to talk about something else.
Yes. I made a post last night, and I really think that you guys deal with this on a daily basis because, what do you point at?
You're not in the camera.
Okay. Scoot over. All right. Now that we're in the camera, I'm in the camera. But this is something that you guys deal with on a daily basis. Why? We've dealt with this on a daily basis for, about 20 years now.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, 97 is when I started really falling apart.
Okay. So we'll say about 23 years for her and probably about 20-something years for me too. When you get chronically ill, your life falls apart. And I'm not meaning that in a negative way. I'm just pointing out that the sicker you get, the more trouble you have maintaining life the way you had been. And I realized yesterday, because Michelle and I had been dealing with financial issues and this kind of stuff and work issues and that type of employment and
yeah, buy our book, please.
Mm-hmm. And so, but even more than that, we were at Thanksgiving on Thursday, and Michelle was listening to people talk about how they enjoyed this and how they enjoyed that and how this and everything else. Well, she goes, why don't I enjoy anything anymore? And I was realizing, I'm just getting back into enjoying some of the stuff, but I had to stop and think, why have we lost our enjoyment for life? Why have we lost the ability to enjoy life? Because we got chronically ill. You get so sick when you're ill, when you're chronically ill, that you have to think about how much energy you can expend between the bed and the car on the way to work in the morning.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't even wear jeans at my worst because they were too heavy. I couldn't pick up my legs.
That was the Lyme disease, EBV.
Yeah.
And when you're so chronically ill that you literally have to plan your physical energy expenditure,
yes,
then your life takes a drastic hit. And what happens when your life falls apart like that is you get into survival mode because that's all you can do. And it's not your fault that you're sick.
Nope, it isn't.
That's the thing.
You actually have something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. And which is why we did the your thoughts aren't making you sick. And so you've got to realize that if your life isn't the way you want it to be, it's probably because you're sick. I mean, it's one thing if it's not the way you want it to be, because
it could be as simple as metals and you're not having symptoms, but metals are in the way.
Exactly. And that could be causing an energy drain on you. It could be causing
misperceptions.
And so, and that just kills your life over time. So the sicker you get, the more your life falls apart because you can't hold it together like you could. And, it's funny. I see people who are sick and they'll say, well, my life is going great. And I'm like, okay, well, then you're just not sick enough for your life to take a drastic hit yet. And I remember I've had people say, well, why worry about your health now? And I'm like, because then I won't have to worry about it later. Because then the rest of my life can be, living instead of worrying about if I can make it out of bed.
Well, I think also part of my problem with not enjoying things is I'm in such a huge transition with a different brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have autism, but I had metals in the way that was causing me to not be able to do some of the things I wanted to do. And I've talked about this, about my music. And now I can do things. And now I'm like, oh, there's so many options. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like lost. I love doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I love helping you guys. But it's not enough people to make me enough money. So right now we're living on Mark's very small income.
Mm-hmm. Well, our friend Lacey says, I think the positive side of it is it helps you see and focus on what's important. Once you get better, you can zero in on the important things. So many healthy people can sometimes be distracted by things that aren't as important.
That's
Lacey,
true,
that
Lacey.
is 100%
I'm so
true.
there.
Because I would say that before we got sick, we were doing that same thing.
Yeah, because we've definitely weeded out what we actually don't want. Right. That's the truth, Lacey.
And so there is a benefit to being sick.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm excited to be on the other side.
Right. Well, and and while there is a benefit, I think for the most part, just healing teaches you what you need to know. And being in survival mode all that time develops a habit in your head. Yeah. So therefore, once you get well, your brain and your beliefs haven't caught up with your well body yet. And so you're having to change how you think about life. And here's what I mean by this. I'll give an example. Michelle and I lived in Atlanta for about 14 years. And we moved here to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City doesn't have nearly as much traffic. It only has about a third of the people, maybe a little less. And so...
Well, it's only 1 million as opposed to...
Right.
It's probably 6. 8 million now.
Yeah. And so in Atlanta, you have to plan the route that you take to get somewhere. You have to plan the time, and you have to make sure you have gas, right? So those 3 or 4 things are constant in Atlanta. You always have to do that, right? So when we moved here, I only noticed the other day that we've stopped worrying about, man, it might take us an hour to get over there. Because it doesn't take an hour to get anywhere in Oklahoma City. No. It takes an hour to maybe get an hour away from Oklahoma City. But we have finally stopped doing that after about 6 years, about eight or 9 years. We finally stopped going and realizing, we're not in Atlanta, so we don't have to plan for Atlanta traffic anymore.
Yeah, that neural network was so in place.
Well, and that's what it is now with our health. Mm-hmm. We're realizing, we can actually thrive now instead of being in survival mode because we're not sick anymore.
Oh my goodness, I've played my whole life sick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I was really sick.
Right.
I don't even know how I did it.
And so the whole point of saying all this is realize that if you're in survival mode, it's probably because you're chronically ill. And if you're still in survival mode and you've healed, then you got some beliefs to work on. And or a perspective change.
Perspective.
And so what it is, for us, we realized that we no longer have to worry about when you're sick, you have to worry about every little detail of life.
Yeah.
And when you're not sick, then you go, wait a minute, I don't have to think like this anymore. I can go do what I want. And remember, you have to worry when you're sick, but you don't have to worry so much, hardly at all, when you're well. So as that book, I'm not sure who wrote it. It was back. I remember seeing it in the 90s, but don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff.
Mm-hmm. So
we just wanted to let you guys know that if you're in survival mode, it's probably because you're sick. But if you've healed pretty well, or at least to where you want to be, and you're still in survival mode, you just need a perspective change. So anyway, we wanted to relay that story to you because as we find stuff out, we let you guys know because it might be helpful for y'all too. But anyway, guys, we will...
Thank you, Lacey and Lenita, for contributing.
Exactly. And we appreciate you contributing from California 2 hours ahead. So it's not even noon for you guys yet. All right, guys. Well, continue with the
heavy metal detox smoothie.
And the celery juice and the lemon water. And go to www.healyourautism.com And you can download our free ebook called Buried Alive, One Man's Journey Out of Autism.
And that has the glossary in it.
It does, that we've been taking words out of. And we got to Implicit today, and we'll continue with intuition maybe tomorrow.
Yep.
And then also, after you read the Buried Alive book, you will want to start your own healing journey, because many of our readers have found it to be very motivating. And so go to www.healyourautism.com/buy the book, BUY the book, and then that is our detox guide called Heal Your Autism's Do-It-Yourself Guide. Healing begins in your kitchen. And it shows you exactly how we got to where we are now and where we're going to continue on.
With links on where to buy and what to buy.
Exactly.
All kinds of stuff in there. And we're doing a t-shirt campaign. So that is pinned to the top of the Facebook page if you'd like to buy a t-shirt. Exactly. And that'd be a great way to show your support, and be a great way to show that you're healing yourself. And you can tell others. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And we will see you tomorrow. Okay. Have a great day. Y'all too. Bye-bye.